welcome to Emerging Excellence, and it is our pleasure to introduce Roit Feldenkrais, and coming in from beautiful Barcelona. I think my first Spanish, or not your Spanish, Roit, but at least from in Spain in terms of a guest there. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. For those who don't know, and what we're going to discover today is about Roit's incredible journey from being a soprano singer all the way through to being or transitioning to become a conductor of an orchestra, which is very, very cool. And now venturing or using that kind of musical side of things to kind of help embrace and show leaders how to kind of reveal their own maestro. So, Roit, first of all, thanks so much for being here. It's lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me. Thank you so much. It's awesome.
So I would love to start with your story briefly, if we can, because I think a lot of people maybe don't know what it's like to become exceptionally good at singing. You know, it's a really interesting and finding your voice. And I think that's a beautiful kind of analogy for, where I want to orientate this conversation. Because when I heard about you, when I came across you, I just happened to be using these things, which is, for those who can't see, it's a conductor's baton. And because I feel like it's a really beautiful analogy for leadership and what a leader needs to do. Their job is no longer to play the instrument, but you specialize in your own voice. So talk to us about like what's been your story in this space and kind of been kind of that journey as a leader.
Well, singing was actually, the way that I first encountered music, especially classical music. So like at the age of 7, I was in this school choir, just, minding my own business. And the maestra in that case, she said, "Oh, okay, well, you can sing and you have this musical talent. So let's get you some lessons, so it was her that really just gave me this little nudge, at 7 years old, just to study sheet music and understand how that world really works. And from then on, it became my main tool of expression, so to speak. So when I grew up, I joined this really famous children's choir. And so we performed all around the world for presidents, prime ministers. Yeah, it was a fantastic experience. And through that, I wasn't I didn't grow up in a musical family. I don't have like these connections and, going to concerts, things like that. I do have like very passionate parents, that love it, but they're not professionals. So being in that choir, I had the opportunity to watch all these amazing conductors of this, elite orchestras that we worked with. So that got me thinking, oh my God, like this is so much better, than just actually only singing, which I love to this day. But like this sheer amount of people and so many colors and so many things that you can do. And just one person that really sees the entire picture and coordinates everything and manages everything, leads everyone. So it's fantastic.
Tell me, for those who aren't that familiar with music, so just for some background away, I played cello from like at the age 6. And so I went from the UK system, as in I went all the way up to grade 8. And I played in lots of orchestras. And to be very clear, I really hated it, actually. And when I did my grade 8, and I remember coming home and my mum said, "So what are you going to do with your cello now?" And I said, literally, "I'm going to burn it." And I put it away, and I literally like probably didn't play it for another maybe 5-6 years, something like that. And I sold it maybe 10 years after that. And so my let's say involvement with music was kind of a frosty one, because I never really felt like I vibed with it, actually. And you, just before we hit record, we actually talked about how writing a book, as we're both kind of going through the process at the moment, can feel like you're being very exposed. So I'm curious, like as a soprano, I feel like you're even more exposed, like your nerves are coming through your voice, right? What's it like being a professional singer in that context?
Well, I think for me, it's a bit different because when I started on the professional path, I continued singing, but my main objective was the actual conducting. So I continued singing, but I never got to the stage where I, perform as a soloist on huge stages, because that was already as a conductor. So, but having said that, singing I think is actually the most exposed musical profession of them all.
Yeah.
Because
sure.
as you said, I mean, like when you are just a bit tired, a bit stressed, like everything goes through your voice, through your body. You don't have that instrument like the piano here that I can just, play and it plays, So I totally get that. And for me, it's a journey that I continue doing today, which basically means that, as exposed as I am, this is who I am. And that is what I try to bring both to my conducting, engagements, that, we are there for the music, not for our ego. And that is also what I do in the leadership development space, that we're there for our teams, for the actual purpose. So I think that always is the point that had helped me throughout my career. Like, okay, this is not about how fantastic I am, which of course I'd like to be, but like conveying that, transmitting that message, that musical message that I really want to get across to my audience.
Wow. So help me understand, what's the role of the conductor? Because I feel like that seems ambiguous. It seems like maybe straightforward, but in your own words, what would you say the job actually is, or what does it actually entail?
Well, the conductor's job is actually to take, between 50 and 100 highly skilled, the most talented people, musicians you can imagine, and get them aligned with your vision, with your interpretation of the musical piece, in almost no, just through nonverbal communication, basically, not verbal aside, through 2 or 3 rehearsals. That's it.
Right. Okay.
So with the movement of your hand, like this tiny little movement that you make, the sound is completely different. They react, and then you receive it and immediately give them like the next gesture, the next phrase. So they are all aligned. They all play exactly as you would want them to.
So what's interesting for those who are unfamiliar, and this is perhaps where I never maybe got to this level. So as a cellist, I was very focused on just trying to keep up with the music. And I think I probably never got to the level you're talking about, where I was watching the conductor so much that I was really going in line with what they were looking for. I was just trying to make sure I didn't get lost on the page, because that's a tricky part, right?
For sure. I think when you're starting out, you have to get past that point. And of course, it's quite difficult. I mean, classical music is insane. It's a level that, you just have to. I mean, the amount of practice that is needed is really quite staggering.
I did not love that bit at all. Like, I hated that bit. And I think so. Just tell me, so. Okay, so with a couple of movements of your hands, you're trying to get them to come to follow you. And I think what's interesting about this analogy, which I have enjoyed a lot actually, is that the experts which you're leading, they know what to do because the music is literally directly in front of them. And so how do you think about what's the je ne sais quoi, or the, hello, what's the other bit you're bringing to that?
Well, that is always the question, because people say, well, they have, the Mozart symphony written literally in front of them. So why do they actually need you? So they need someone. If it's not me, it's going to be the first violinist, the concert master. They need a leader. Even if you're playing, a piece by Bach, for example, that requires only 10 musicians and usually doesn't need a conductor, they need any type of leader.
Mm.
because essentially, the music that is written, it's not, like we're not robots. So if you hear, Beethoven Symphony Number 5 or Tchaikovsky Symphony Number 5, all these pieces that have been played thousands, millions of times, each performance will sound a bit different, or sometimes even really different, because you can interpret it in your own way. So, for example, if it says, okay, adagio, which means slow, how slow? And, where do we like make this phrase a bit more quiet, or maybe the vibrato sound should be different, or the balance between the instruments. There are so many different aspects that the work is never done. Basically, it's it continues living, and while you perform it still does. So it's never done.
So how do you like it? Because there's a lot of pressure, right? Let's take some of the Tchaikovsky's piece or a piece of Mozart. Like there's a pressure to do it justice. And there's a like I'm curious, like how do you think about bringing, actually, first of all, let's talk about like what part of leadership do you feel like it really taps into? And I want to touch on in a minute around performance, because I was watching some of your videos online, and there's this kind of element of, it's almost like a dance in some capacity, where the audience is looking at you and they can't see your face necessarily, but like your expression. And if you just kind of stood there, come on guys, are we almost there? Like that wouldn't be the same as the drama or something like that. So like, maybe the question is, how do you prepare? And specifically, what are you trying to tease out, or how do you interpret this music? Are you looking for like a gap, or what is it that you're trying to achieve there?
Well, that is a huge question. So I think fundamentally my role as a conductor is, as you said, to do justice, for the music that I bring. So if I have any type of music, first of all, I study numerous hours. I play everything on the piano. I analyze everything, and that is just the beginning. Just the beginning. After knowing the music super well,
Right.
and knowing the different parts, because you have 80 players on stage and you have to know what they're playing.
Yeah.
That is the next step, is to think about, okay, what is the message here? What is my specific interpretation of this, for example, musical phrase, of this movement? What type of color do I want to bring in this section? Which instrument do I want to shine, like in this specific passage? So it really depends on each piece. And because the audience doesn't see my face, it doesn't mean that I normally, like dance on the podium or things like that. It really depends on the piece itself. So if I conduct, anything quite serious, like a Brahms symphony, then my body language would be completely different than if I would conduct, for example, like the Marquez number 2 that you probably saw online. And this is like, a Mexican dance, so I can dance on stage, but it doesn't mean that every piece, in every piece I can do that, of course. And so the next thing that what you were asking about is, in terms of leadership, what I expect from the orchestra and what I give them and what I have to form is, first and foremost, is trust. So I have around 5 minutes, and that's saying it, it's a bit less than that. 5 minutes to get them to trust me. I go on stage and immediately we just start playing, and musicians, especially, like highly skilled, trained musicians, experienced ones, they can read you like an open book in literally 2 minutes. Right. So getting that trust is the first step. And then we can start building, the little things that we want to achieve from that concert specifically.
Let's talk about trust building in 5 minutes, because I feel like that's a super relatable skill, right? Like how the hell do you approach that? What do you seek out? Especially, Like, so over here in Australia, we focus a lot on the infrastructure and construction space, and so we come across lots of individuals who, 40 years of construction experience, and what they don't know about, like a retaining wall is not worth knowing, and there's that can follow or come with an ego, and I would imagine it wouldn't be dissimilar to a cellist with 40 years experience. And what is this? What is this? 2-bit conductor, what can she show me? That kind of thing. So, yeah, how do you approach that? How do you think about that?
Well, it's always an issue, and it was quite more difficult when I was just starting out, when you're like 20 something and you come to a big orchestra that has been playing together for the past 30 years. They look at you like, yeah, what are you going to tell us? We've done this piece literally a million times. So what are you going to do differently? But essentially, I think it goes back to the point that we discussed before. As a musician, as an artist, it's all, like as a writer, you have to be really focused on what you want, on what you see for yourself as an artist, what type of message you want to get across. So before coming to the orchestra, before even stepping onto that podium, because then it's already too late, you have to do the work, the internal work as well as the external one, just to be really, really focused on what you're bringing, and to, of course, come super, super prepared. I mean, that goes without saying. Yeah. You have to know the piece in such a way that no one can challenge your skills, your abilities. They might ask you, how is your take on different things? And they might suggest things like in, corporate teams. And that is a different thing. But it's already, if that trust is already established, then you can do this creative work together.
Got you. I'm curious about the analogy. It's a metaphor, right? This conductor as a leader in terms of corporate. Where do you think it suits, and where do you think it falls over? What are the limits to the metaphor, and where? Because unfortunately in business there isn't necessarily a score, and it's a very much like you turn the page and it's a blank page, right? And you're trying to orchestrate or get a bunch of people to work through this blank page rather than a written page. So yeah, what do you think you found of translates well when it comes to leadership, and what doesn't?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to understand that, as a leader, you don't get to choose your team most of the time, but you do get a very talented bunch of people. So this is your orchestra, essentially. And these people do know their part. I mean, they were hired to do a specific role. So in a sense, they do have some sort of score. Not a physical one, of course, but they do know, okay, this is the job title, this is my role, this is what I'm aiming to achieve. So first, I think that is an analogy that really works, that you have your team, especially in, tech, really corporate environments, you have a really talented team as well. So you have to work with what you got. And the other thing that really works fantastic is every type of communication. So as a conductor, we have 2-3 rehearsals. We have to manage this type of communication so fast to get across our messaging, to get across our, ideas, our vision, all that really, really quickly and clearly. So this is, of course, when you're in the corporate environment, you can speak, you have that verbal communication going on as well. But what most leaders don't really focus on is the nonverbal part, which plays a huge part in the actual communication. So if you're a leader and your team sees you coming into the office super stressed, and you're not watching them, you're not looking them in the eye, or if you're speaking to them, but you don't allow this really open body language between the team, and so many things that we can take from conducting. then it completely derails your leadership agenda, so to speak. So
it is so true.
And this is just the beginning. So many things are like exactly parallel. It's just astounding to see. It's,
Yeah.
I think one more would be, the reaction time that as conductors, we know we give the instruction and immediately we get that feedback, so to speak, that reaction from the orchestra in sound, actually.
Yeah.
And that sound, we can, hear it and we have to correct it or continue in a matter of seconds. So in the corporate world, of course, it's not exactly the same thing, but this little point that correction on the go and this immediate feedback and this immediate connection is something that we also aim to bring to the corporate world.
Wow, you're right. It's probably got a lot of similarities. Where do you think it kind of falls over? What doesn't translate, do you think, in terms of that piece? Is it?
Well, I think what doesn't translate is, two things, basically. I mean, we don't have the same KPIs, of course. Our KPIs are quite, let's say, formalized. This is a 500-year industry, the classical music industry. So our KPIs don't change, from quarter to quarter. So that is different. But the dynamic, the dynamic environment that we operate in, where everything is live. So everything, you don't get any second chances. So that for me, it really connects the dots that, okay, in the corporate world, we have these things that change every quarter, and we have these matrix that we have to, to align with. But that is the same dynamic environment that we have on stage. So that is one area. And the other one is that, there is a hierarchy in classical music that today it's of course, it's a bit less than before. You can't, speak, you can't like bully your musicians, luckily. I mean, as some were doing
What do you
before.
What do you mean by bowl? What do you mean?
Bullying.
Oh, bullying. Okay.
Bullying, yeah. Yeah. You can't bully your musicians, luckily. As these huge, like wonderful conductors have done before, but at a cost, at a huge cost. So this really has changed, and this is quite similar to the corporate world as well. But it is essentially, there is a hierarchy, and in the orchestra, it's quite clear who's doing what. And sometimes, in startup mode and things like that, it's a bit different, of course. People are doing everything. So that might seem a bit different for, from the classical music industry.
Okay. Can you help me understand where I was in the hierarchy as a cellist? Like, because I was, this was obviously, I was oblivious to this. What
row were you in? What row?
It depends if the good ones are away. I was typically, second or third desk, something like that.
Okay. So, like mid-level management, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
because
good,
the leaders of the string sections, for people who don't know, the leaders, the two people in the front row of every string sections are essentially the directors of that section. So they see what the conductor wants, and then they make sure that really happens in that section, in their section. That is their responsibility. It's an actual responsibility, official one. So the ones behind that, they have to continue transmitting that message and making sure it really works.
It's interesting. I think for those who aren't familiar, so the way, at least it worked in my orchestra, is that we would play as a group, and then we would break off into our sections, that being the cellos would go off, the violins would go off, and the trumpets would go off, and then you will practice. And as you said, the section leader or section leaders, predominantly in my world, it was mainly just one. We would focus on them, and then we might have a tutor or a teacher who could guide us through how to actually do that. And it was very obviously we would drill certain parts and we would practice certain parts of the piece.
Exactly. Because this is like a high school orchestra, essentially.
Yeah, correct. It was a little bit more sophisticated than that, Robbie, but not far off. Yeah, like it was.
No, essentially you have that like education,
of course,
aspect, which is of course different when you're a professional. You just come and do the work.
You're expected to be any good. Yeah, no, very much, very much so. And so, yeah, it was an interesting exercise, right? And then, so I'm curious. There's two things I really want to talk about. Actually, the kind of the most suitable right now is the succession planning or empowering of your executives, let's say, or your team leaders. And as a conductor, like if I would imagine if I was in the orchestra, you would have heard the howling cello two desks back, and you were like, God, geez, like that guy. And it's like there would be a temptation to be like, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? Like that would, but it would have to be like, okay. So how do you temper that? Like, what does that look like for you, and how do you think about that talent development part when you're leading?
Well, I think it has to do with two things. I mean, one is the actual rehearsal time, and the other is outside of rehearsal. I mean, like more strategic planning. So when you're the music director of an orchestra, you can at one point or another.
So, just for clarity, musical director is the same as a conductor, or are they different?
Well, a music director is also a conductor, but they also see, the day-to-day planning of the programs. They conduct most of them. They invite the guest conductors, so they are the actual they're not the CEO, but there's an actual CEO to the orchestra as well. But they're let's say the CTO, for example. They do the actual musical planning. So when you have an orchestra as a music director, you do have the possibility, if you need to have a look at your talent and see what's not working. So sometimes orchestras undergo these really difficult processes where they need to let go of some people because things are not working. It can be from the musical side, the technical side, or sometimes on a personal side, as well, because the energy is not working well, the atmosphere, the things that can happen in an orchestra of 80 players. If you have like one or two people that really, really mess things up and they don't want to be there and they're really frustrated or really cynical, it really affects everyone else. So that is one. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like in the corporate world. So that is one aspect. On the other hand, I mean, when you're actually, doing the rehearsal, when you're rehearsing a piece, you have such a limited time that your communication has to be so precise. So for me, the key here is to have the difficult conversations as clearly as possible. So, for example, if something isn't working, it's not about, oh my God, I'm so frustrated. Why isn't it working? Why haven't you practiced? Whatever. Of course, you can't say that to professional musicians. I mean, that is really, really offending. So what you say instead, I didn't like this specific bar here. Let's do it this way. I would like it to be more forte, like a little louder, more piano, a little softer. I would like it to be faster. This wasn't exactly aligned. Let's try it again with my beats. So you have to just correct without bringing the emotion to it. And this is the way that I also, I bring this type of angle to leadership development to the executives I work with, that correcting is not, punishing. It's not telling someone off. It's not, having anything that is, you don't you mean just to do things well. You want to get them across. So it's just a matter of, conveying your message in the the clearest way possible, so that you just get things corrected instantly and you can move on. because lots and lots and lots and lots of executives, they wait and wait and wait and wait. They don't have, I mean, we don't have that privilege on stage. We have like literally 10 seconds to correct that phrase.
Yeah.
And move on. So, but in the corporate world, they wait and they say, okay, maybe next time it'll be better. And then by that time that you see things that, that are not working the way you want them to, you're already so frustrated. You're already so pissed off that the conversation becomes so, insane and just really, really tough. Whereas you could have just corrected things and said, okay, this isn't working. I would like it to be a bit different. Can you change that and show me how it's done? And then, you just get it done. It could be a bit simpler. That's the case.
It's so good. I love it. It's really powerful. I think, correcting the action is a really interesting one, right? Yeah. Where I'd love to go is the being the hands-off part. So what I recently invested in this baton, and I was thinking about, I now send it to my clients to remind them that their new job is to do this. And I found that what's interesting about holding a baton is that it gives you something to do. And I'm curious, maybe just enlighten me, what's it for? Because I've often wondered, it seems like a rather superfluous, what's the point of it? But tell me why?
Well, essentially, it's just an extension of your hand, nothing more.
That's it.
Basically, because you stand on the podium and you look at people that are sitting sometimes six rows from you, backstage and like in the last row there, they need to see you. So if I take, well, this is my baton for today because it's there. Essentially, if I take this pen and I show the movement, you can watch this part and not look for the tiny movements of my hand, which, if you're like the bass trombone, you won't see that. Well, you could, but it's just so much more difficult. So the baton is just the extension of my hand. And also when I give the beat there, it's quite easier to see, exactly where it falls, that little movement. But it's not more than that. It started, 300 years ago. They had these sticks just to give the beat. Yeah. And one composer, I think it was Lully, this is an insane story. One day he punctured his leg with this actual stick. No, it's quite insane. And then he died from that. Yeah. So this was before antibiotics and things like that. So that's how it started, to give the time where you have this ensemble and they need to be exactly with you. So this is like Baroque and before that, essentially like the 1600s. So yeah, and nowadays we have this light, beautiful baton that we can, move around to show the beat and to show the phrasing of, the musical phrasing, and things like that.
So good. So help me around this. So in the work we do, we work with a lot of emerging leaders. They're typically stepping into their first leadership role. And one of the biggest challenges we see is that transition from being really competent at something, at being, let's say in your context, being a really good singer or being a really good cellist. And they got high level of technical proficiency in doing it. And they've kind of also built their identity around, how they do that. And now they're just stood in front of a bunch of people holding a silly stick or sometimes how do you help people kind of make that shift? And maybe if we could relate that to you personally, what's that been like for you to transition to, even when you're really good at singing, if you're leading a group of singers or an orchestra, how do you stop yourself from going, oh, just do it like this?
Yeah. Well, that is that's one tough question. It is a huge transition. And I keep reminding, the leaders I work with that, as a conductor, I can't step off the podium and go to my oboes to say, listen, just play like that, or the violin, let's just play like that. No. basically we have to step back and provide the space for our top talent, our employees, teams, even mid-level managers that we direct to do their job. So it is difficult. It is difficult. You have to have this level of strategy and vision that you did not have before. Because before you were, focusing on your own part, you were focusing on, being a good singer, a good cellist, a good coder, depending on what you were doing. But now you have to have this level of maturity and vision that you didn't have before. And so this is just the beginning. And then you have to align everyone according to that vision. So everything actually is completely different than what you were used to before. And if you decide that you want to step into that role, it means, having a complete, change of mindset. Because otherwise it is impossible. And then what you get is, there are leaders that micromanage every tiny detail on their teams and never get to that place where they can relax a bit, see the bigger picture, and, get to a point of growth. But they just focus on the day-to-day, tasks and things like that. And that is a huge problem. Yeah. It's a mindset shift that has to happen from day one. And this is something that we work on extensively with emerging leaders. Yeah.
It's super, it's a very challenging step. I know I've been through that myself. I had an army background. So when I left school, I joined the British Army, and we did a very practical training session. And my job was to help build a crane to retrieve a tank barrel from a minefield, which was a log in the middle of some cones, right? And so we constructed this crane. I was holding onto the bottom of the crane, and my team were kind of around me. And we did manage to achieve the task. And I finished that, and I thought, God, I've done such a great job. And then I walked over to the guy who had the clipboard, and he was monitoring or evaluating my capability. And he literally just said, "What the hell was that?" And it was the first time.
Oh my God.
Where I was like I didn't even know there was a different way to do it. And I think that's the tricky thing about this whole leadership business, and it's such a massive industry because it's so tricky to kind of nail down, right? And that's perhaps what I love about this analogy. It actually clarifies it quite succinctly, because it would be ludicrous to think that you could just go and jump in every time a mistake happens to just go, I'm going to play the violin now, I'm now going to play the trumpet, now they're over. Like, you would just be ridiculous. And then the cost also, I think, becomes really obvious, is because when you're not there as a conductor, you've got 79 other people, to use your numbers, who have no idea what they're doing and how it links up together. And it's so easy to get out of sync when you've got, and I think that's the bit which I really love about this whole analogy. So in terms of your work, help me understand, because from the videos I've seen online, it looks like you bring executives in and you give them a chance to lead an orchestra or something like that. Tell us like how you approach this, because I think it's a really beautiful way to do it. It seems really fun. So yeah, just help us understand your work there.
Yeah. So besides the one-on-one coaching that we do with executives, we have these amazing workshops where we get the executive leadership team to a half day or a full day with an actual professional ensemble. So this can be between, like a quartet of 4 musicians up to like a full orchestra. So what we do there, we start by explaining the analogies as we were doing here today. and really focus on what I call the top 10 baton skills. So
Okay.
these are essentially the top 10 leadership skills that any leader in any industry needs. And after we go through those, we really start, practicing how it is to actually conduct. So we
Cool.
all get, they start, learning the basics. They're all standing. I show them the movements, how to conduct in 2 and 4. And this depends, of course, on the pieces that we have chosen for them, which are usually, famous songs, things like
Beautiful.
that, because no prior musical knowledge is needed for those workshops. So after they they learn all these basic conducting techniques. I start by showing them how I conduct this piece first without bringing my true self, my experience, my vision, and just let the musicians, play. And immediately they get this little cringe, feeling in their body. They say, oh, this is so bad. This is so bad. You can literally see it on stage. The musicians, they start looking at one another. The sound really just, it's a horrible thing to watch. It's like a train wreck. and what's amazing is that the musicians, it's such an interesting experience for the musicians as well, because we're trained. You know how it is. We're trained to play well, that the sound will sound, that everything will sound amazing. So usually after like a minute or two, they say, okay, stop. Okay, we get it. It's horrible. It's horrendous. Don't do it again. And then I show them, okay, now I will actually conduct. I have a vision for this song. I will be connected non-verbally with my musicians in every tiny second of the piece. And let's see how that is. And then they hear it like, okay, this is a completely different, it's like a different song, And then we go back into, okay, so what did you feel? What did you see? And we ask the musicians as well, like what did not work for you here and worked for you there? And then what they start doing is one by one, the brave ones are the first ones that they get up in front of the orchestra and try to do the same thing. And then they realize what happens in real time, that, okay, you have to react within a split second. You have to convey your message so clearly that there's no, everyone is super clear on what you actually want. You can't get lost in your own train of thoughts because people are watching you every second. So many things go on. One of the CEOs that we've done this workshop with recently, he turned around, like when he finished, he turned around there were like about 200 executives there. It was like a huge conference. So he turns around and tells them, listen, I was so caught up in the music that I forgot that I actually needed to be conducting and to actually show what I wanted, because I was so like immersed in this beautiful music. I thought I could just let go. It's like, yeah, but these are the musicians, they're watching you every single minute. So yeah. And then after that, we do like this debriefing, of course, and then I show them how to improve, and we speak about all these parallels like we've done here. And if it's a full day, then we bring, of course, other lectures and things like that. And it's all bespoke. So it's according to their specific challenge. So each company, each leadership team has different challenges, today, and we'll have different ones tomorrow. So we really tailor every single workshop to that.
So fun. What an awesome way to do it. And it's so different as well. And I think, such a beautiful way to do it. And like the metaphors are just like incredible. Like getting lost in the music, getting distracted. I just thought, I thought I had competent people. What do I do? All of this, you could just, it's so just I'm curious on the top 10 baton skills. You say it much nicer than I do. What are some of those where you kind of highlight in terms of what do you feel like some of the key ones?
Well, I think the first one would be, your presence is everything. Your presence as a person and definitely as a leader changes everything. How you get up in the morning and how you enter the office. Everyone is watching you from the minute you enter the office up until the moment that you leave. Everyone is watching your body language, your presence, and essentially who you are as a person. So you can't fail to really think about it from a different perspective. It's not just about, okay, I just got up and then I know what I have to do and I'll just get that in an email and that's that. As a leader, especially in senior positions, you have the whole organization watching you every single minute, just like a conductor. So that would be like one of the key ones. And then that brings us, of course, to communication, the verbal and nonverbal, having those difficult conversations, being firm but kind, being true to who you are, to your values, while, maintaining that performance, those KPIs that we have to, get done. And of course, the nonverbal communication, if you're coming and speaking to your team, watch them, what are they doing? Are they with you? Can you read the room? Do you see what is actually going on? Or are you just like, in your own bubble that things are fantastic, but you don't see that they are disconnected from you? So, I mean, this is just a starting point, but of course we have several more. Because these are skills, and I don't think that we can call them soft skills anymore. We have to change that. And these are power skills. These are the skills that actually matter, especially today in the AI, era, that things are like rapidly changing. So these power skills are the ones that we have to count on.
I think, to your point there, it actually goes right back to building trust really quickly. I feel like I've definitely used AI for my LinkedIn posts as an example. I went through a phase where I was like, my spelling isn't great. And so I used it to improve the perfection level of my spelling. But I think what I missed when I did that is you actually lose trust. And I feel like AI is incredibly intelligent, but I don't trust it. I don't trust it blindly. And trust is a very, very, very powerful thing. And I think when it comes to leading is ultimately that's your core currency, right? It's the ability to, should I follow this person? And if not, and if there isn't that, or if there's a good reason to not trust them, it's very, very difficult at that point. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's sorry.
No, I do. I'm just curious from what you were saying, like, it's funny you have to build it so quickly, right? And that speaks to your also level of confidence in yourself, right? And that speaks to your presence, and you're like, right, okay, here we go. And that is super, super critical, actually, if you're trying to develop trust. And just maybe to the last question here, performance. How much is a performance? How much is not? As in, like, how much do you feel like you're confident going onto a stage, but how much of it is actually, grandeur and you're playing into it because you have to hold yourself in a certain way?
Well, I think it's a mixture, because we're all humans. So we get anxious, we have imposter syndrome, we get, we're tired after a long, flight or whatever. We get, discouraged and frustrated. Yeah, that happens. So I think the core thing here is in leadership, whether on the podium or off, like in the boardroom, then it's all about, connecting to that core self of why am I doing this? Like, what is my purpose here? And going back to that part that says, okay, I've done the work, I've prepared, I have the experience, I feel, scared, but I'm going to do it anyway, because that is my job, because everyone gets scared. So for me personally, performance is everything, literally everything. I see it in all parts of life, Even if you have this, you have to go to this really annoying appointment, like government office, whatever. This is also a performance. You have to get that done. You have to get that done like today. So everything that we're doing, it all ties back to that. But of course, as a leader in an orchestra or in the corporate environment, performance is everything, because the performance is the actual results, the outcomes that are expected of you, what you expect of yourself, but also how you perform, how you show up for your people. And this is the part that you said before, like, why should they follow me? Why should they trust me? So it is because of that conviction that you have to bring as a leader. And it doesn't matter if it's in, the musical world, the tech world, whatever. You have to be really convinced of who you are as a person, you are as a leader, what your vision is, and to be able to get that across in the best way possible. So people do follow you and they are motivated and inspired as well, which is also key.
Yeah, I love that. Robert, such a lovely place to finish this conversation. Yeah, thank you so much. I've loved it. I feel like I've understood my time in orchestra, and I almost feel like it hasn't been a complete waste now, which is lovely. Like,
yeah,
I was like,
no, definitely.
Like I've spent my too many times I spent in the orchestra, like, what am I doing here? So yeah, look, thank you so much. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you to learn more about your one-on-one coaching and also your wonderful programs?
Well, I think the easiest way is, of course, LinkedIn.
Right.
I mean, yeah, and then you have my personal site, my conducting site, and my company site. So I think we have those links probably
we'll
posted, and yeah, that'll be fantastic.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, it's been a lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope that's kind of brought some beautiful musicality and a lovely different angle on leadership for everyone listening.
Thanks so much, Michael.
My pleasure.